I think there's going to be more millionaires made from artificial intelligence than the .com, any of that, right? Like it's never been easier for someone to go create some sort of business, some sort of something in a 3-hour period of time using agents and everything else that's out there. I'm excited for everyone else that's going to go do that.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Best You podcast. My name is Nick Carrier, body optimization coach and creator of the 10-Week Transformation. The mission of this show is to help you get closer to your best you in all areas of your life, every single day. In today's episode, we have a special one, a great one, with Austin Hankwitz. Austin is the host of the top podcast, the Rich Habits podcast, alongside his co-host, Robert Croak. Austin himself is a multi-millionaire in his late 20s with a background in finance and economics. During this episode, Austin is going to give you a masterclass on personal finance, how to build wealth, how to pay off debt and student loans, what accounts you should have open and how much money you should have in them, how to build your investment portfolio from scratch, how to talk about finances with your significant other, and more. This one is going to be phenomenal. For now, it's time to get closer to your best you. Let's dive in. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am super excited to be joined by the one and only Austin Hankwitz. This is a really cool episode for me, Austin. I mean, just to let you know, I probably 4, maybe 3 years ago, I decided to really take it upon me. I already had some knowledge in finances. I majored in finance in college, but personal finance and building wealth is a completely different ballgame than majoring in finance in college. And so I took it upon myself to try to learn as much as possible. And I picked out a number of books to read, and then I researched a bunch of podcasts to listen to, and I basically landed on y'all's podcast like right when it started. And so I've been listening to every single podcast since y'all started, whenever it was a few years ago. And so it's been awesome watching you guys. It's been awesome learning from you. And it's been kind of cool because I'm in a very similar position to you, as I'm 30 years old. I think you're 29. We're both here in Nashville, even though I've never met you in person. And we're both entrepreneurs. So it's been kind of like I can heavily relate with some of the things that you've got going on. So anyways, man, I'm super excited. Basically, you're a multimillionaire in your late 20s, like I said, 29, with a background in finance and economics. The way I want to start is going into a little bit of your story. So I know you used to work a 9 to 5, making maybe around 60K a year, you say. When did you decide, I know, to starting like the Rich Habits podcast and starting the whole Rich Habits thing, through what I understand from y'all's podcast, you DM'd Robert Croak. What made you want to send him a DM, and how did you transition out of your 9 to 5 into doing this?
Great question. And first off, thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you for listening to the Rich Habits podcast for so long. It's super humbling to know that over 100,000 people come back every single week to listen to our show. So it's just super grateful to be in that situation. So I guess a little bit more background on me. I'm 29, like you said. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I graduated from the University of Tennessee back in 2018. I got my degree in finance and economics. I took that to go do mergers and acquisitions for Amedisys, downtown Nashville in the Gulch. They're a large home health, hospice, and personal care company. I was doing that from 2018, 2019, and then 2020. The pandemic happened, and so they gave us like a work from home stipend to go buy a desk and a computer. I used mine to buy a webcam and a microphone, which was pretty fun. And essentially what happened was I found myself at 24 years old sort of lost in the sense that there were people talking about personal finance and investing online, but they were in their early 30s. They were further along than I was. I had student loan debt. I didn't have a credit card yet. I had no idea how to do anything financially, right? I had my degree, but it's, to your point, it's one thing to understand the calculations and the equations. It's another thing to actually practice personal finance. And so what I was doing, I was like, listen, I'm going to just start documenting the process, documenting my journey on TikTok, because now TikTok's a thing. It's the pandemic. Everyone's lip syncing and dancing. So instead of doing that, I'm going to talk about paying off my student loans, maxing out my Roth IRA, building a budget and sticking to it as a 20-something-year-old in Nashville, Tennessee. And so after doing that for a couple months, I realized that people cared about what I had to say and they wanted more access to if it was my thoughts on the markets, if it was, one-on-one via DMs with me, like just more access to what I was thinking and doing. And so I launched a Patreon account. I'm not sure if you guys know, but Patreon's essentially a way for you to tip people online. It's kind of like a subscription type service. And so I quickly found myself with 5, 10, 15 people paying me 15, $20 a month. And I'm like, yo, this is awesome. This is what magic internet money is all about, right? This is a cool side hustle. Still working my 9 to 5 job, but on the side thinking about, wow, how can I begin to really like build this audience of subscribers on Patreon and provide more value to people and begin to really double down on this. And so that's what I did. I spent every waking moment, every weekend. I was working 9 to 5, and then from like 6 to 2 in the morning, just building this every single day. I remember I was late once to a presentation because I was up so late the night before working on this, and my CEO chewed me out. But regardless, I was able to essentially build a business around the idea of sharing my portfolio, my investing strategies, sort of a newsletter type vibe. And that was, to your point, yes, I was making $62,500 a year at my job, first off out of college. And then I remember it was March of 2021. So 1 year after I had been doing this stuff online, I eventually quit my job because I saw that on Patreon I made $18,000 in 1 month. And I was like, this is more money than I would make in several months working my job. Like, I need to actually go all in on this and do everything I can to see this succeed. And so that's when my business partner and I decided to both quit our jobs, go all in on making, content. And now to your point, getting to your question of how I found Robert. So this was back in March of 2021. Our business now in July of 2025 is similar, but also pretty different. So, in the beginning, I realized as a content creator, the most important thing you can do to ensure longevity in your career of creating content is to monetize your audience directly. This means providing them enough value at a reasonable price that they'd want to somehow subscribe to you, tip you, support you monetarily. And so that's what we were doing, right? When it was with Patreon, then we ended up going with Substack, offering a paid newsletter. It was just being able to monetize your audience directly as a content creator is so empowering because you are not depending on the marketing budgets of random companies. And fast forward to 2022, when the stock market did this, every fintech company was laying off people, right? We were happy to be monetizing our audience directly versus, having to rely on, again, the marketing budgets of these companies. So today our business is a couple things. First and foremost, I have a newsletter. That's a monetization lever. We're able to rock and roll that way. It's called the Rate of Return newsletter. We'll talk about all that if you'd like later, but a lot of fun doing that. Back in 2020 and 2021, we realized a lot of the companies that were reaching out to like sponsor my videos and like want to sponsor my content had absolutely no idea how to tell a story and make someone that watches a TikTok video or an Instagram reel actually want to go download their app or invest on their platform or learn more about their product. And so my business partner and I started doing a lot of marketing consulting for these fintech companies like Public and Fundrise and Charles Schwab. They would say, hey, here's a budget of $300,000. Help us spend this in a way that makes sense for our objectives, our campaigns. And so, being in this like financial influencer type sphere of people, I've got a lot of friends that are also doing this. So I love to say, hey guys, y'all want to work with Charles Schwab? They want to do a TikTok video with you guys, and I think this would work out for you. So that's one way that we built our business, and we still do a lot of that today. Marketing consulting with fintech companies, and over the last 3 years, 2.5 years, that has also diversified with ETF issuers. So we have a partnership with the New York Stock Exchange where they send us introductions to iShares, which is BlackRock, or Global X, or ProShares, or Neos Funds, or Nicholas Wealth, or all these other different awesome ETF issuers that are saying, hey, we have an ETF with a very specific strategy, and we have no idea how to get it in front of the right type of investors. Can you help us with that? And so do a lot of that stuff. And now to get to your question about the Rich Habits podcast, podcasting is actually something I really enjoy doing, and I've been doing it since December of 22, I think. So December of 22, I was approached by iHeartMedia to co-host a podcast for them. That show is called Mind the Business Small Business Success Stories. It's essentially a way for myself and my co-host Janice Torres to interview small business owners and learn from their biggest, triumphs and mistakes. And so that got me falling in love with podcasting. I love getting in front of this and talking into a microphone and teaching people about very specific strategies and learnings that I've seen myself. Started working with Morning Brew with their After Earnings podcast. I got to do 16 episodes with that. Interviewed the CEO of Celsius Energy Drink, the CFO of Affirm, the buy now pay later company, Kava, as you guys know, the fast casual dining. So we got to have some really cool conversations there. And then coming now full circle, long-winded answer to your question about the DM, I found Robert on TikTok in, I think it was like January of 2023. And I saw a video he posted about how, here's how to become the first millionaire in your family. And I love how he explained it. He was very articulate, very smart. I figured out he had started Silly Band, so he was a, business mogul in the past and very much still is. And I just DM him like, hey man, we should be friends. I love what you're doing, and I think there's a world where we could work together. And I think a mistake a lot of like content creators and entrepreneurs make is thinking that the world is a zero-sum game. It's very much not. Robert winning, Nick winning, Austin winning, we can all win simultaneously because the pie is so big. And so if we can work together to complement each other, if it's with podcasting, if it's with brands, if it's with whatever it might be, like that's a net positive. And so Robert had the exact same mentality. And so we talked for like an hour about just like for the first time we're on a Zoom call talking about the markets and our different ideas and investing. And he goes, man, that was a good conversation. I was like, yeah, it really was. Man, that'd be great. We should have recorded this, He goes, yeah, we should have. And I was like, maybe we have another conversation and we actually record it. We put it and we publish it like a podcast. And he goes, all right, I'd be cool with that. And so we came up with the Rich Habits podcast. We started it from scratch and no one listened to the first 18, 20 episodes. And then after we got a little bit of momentum now, we started in February of 23. No one listened to the first however many months. And then by October of 23, we hit #1 on Spotify's business chart. And now we're a consistent top 10 presence on their business chart on Spotify. Like I said, 100,000 weekly listeners, 250,000 followers on Spotify, and it has unlocked some insane opportunities. We got invited to the White House last year into the Biden administration to talk about their student loan program, or learn more about it rather. We got invited to ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange with BlackRock because of the podcast. I just so many awesome opportunities, and it's just like it's comes back to this idea, and then I'll shut up. Of you're only one DM, one email, one phone call, one Zoom call away from a completely different life. And so anyone listening right now, if you have an idea, if you want to reach out to someone, like always do it. There's nothing to lose, especially if it's a good idea. Like just have that mentality of like there's only one thing away. You're just that one conversation away. So if you could say yes or do things like like Nick and I here on this podcast, he's like, hey, let's do it. I'm like, heck yeah, man, let's do it. Like, let's have some fun. There's always having that abundance mindset, and the mindset that the world is not a zero-sum game is going to take you so far in this world.
Totally. That's awesome. I did not know all of the backstory. That's great. And I mean, obviously you're one DM away. 100% agree with that. Like I've had some unbelievable relationships come because of a DM for sure. But there's also something to it. Like you had a lot of knowledge behind the subject. You were already providing value in the space. And not just you're not just asking something of somebody in a DM. You're kind of like maybe just bringing them value or just trying to build a friendship and just being honest about it, not just like trying to take advantage of somebody else's status in the DM. So, dude, this is awesome. We're going to go a lot of different places. Honestly, I think the first place I want to go to, which I was not expecting to go to here, is you were making $62,000 a year. Now you're not. You don't need to share with us how much you're making on a monthly basis, but you mentioned that 1 month you bring in $18,000 a month. Like what has kind of changed for you? How have you handled a lot of people when they go from, nothing to a lot, however you want to define that, in a short period of time? They don't know how to handle it. They change their habits. What has changed for you, or what have you done to ensure that the maybe big increase in the money that you're bringing in has only benefited you and not ever been a drawback?
So happy to share. I'm an open book. Yes, I was making $62,500 a year working at my old job. My business, which is owned by myself and my business partner, we generate about $250,000 a month in revenue on about 80 to 85% net profit margins after everything's said and done.
Wow.
So you can figure out, I guess, the math on that. But how do I guess, navigate that? How did I navigate that? Um, Money is a magnifying glass. So like if you were a jackass before you had money, you're going to be an even bigger jackass now that you have it. And I'm lucky that I had a father who was able to raise me in such a way to be kind and nice to people, and just be empathetic. And I just think that like the money side of the equation was actually the easiest because I never really thought about it as a sense of like, oh, look at all this money I'm making now. Like, how cool am I? Like, whatever. Now, tactically speaking, it was a nightmare. I had to completely figure out a different way to operate my business with the S corporation. I now have a holding company. I now have a tax advisor. I pay a lot of money for tactically speaking. Yes, that was a nightmare, and the taxes are I happily pay six figures or more a year in taxes. I think that's totally fine. I'm actually a big believer. If you make a lot of money, pay your taxes. It's all cool. Don't complain about it. But at the end of the day, like being able to go from, to your point, 65,000 a year to now a couple million a year is, yeah, it's a shock for sure. And being able to then say, okay, tactically speaking, so what we did is essentially I have an LLC, I have an S corporation that it's taxed as. I have myself on a salary, which means that I'm paying self-employment taxes, which are Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes on that salary, and then everything above that salary I take as an owner's distribution, which I only pay federal income tax on. That saves me about 15.5% per year on that money that I'm making versus just paying it to me as a salary because W-2 is a lot, more tax intense than, the way we have it structured now. With that being said, too, I mean, major shout out to Carry.com. Ankur Nagpal started that company back in 2022 or 2023, making it very easy for solopreneurs and small business owners to go out and open up and execute upon these mega backdoor Roth solo 401ks, these SEP IRAs, these backdoor, things of that nature. Where if you had asked me back in 2022, hey, Austin, go do a mega backdoor Roth solo 401k on Vanguard or Fidelity, I would look at you cross eyed. But luckily, with the tools and resources we have today, it's a lot easier. But yeah, I think, tactically speaking, there's a lot of like levers that had to get pulled to make sure
Totally.
that now it's on autopilot. But from a like emotional standpoint, money is a magnifying glass. If you're a nice person without it, you're going to be a nice person with it, vice versa.
Totally. No, I totally agree. It makes you more of who you are. One of the things, I'm a fitness trainer, nutrition coach. One of the things I always tell people that I coach is success is supposed to take time because it requires you to form the habits and the character necessary to sustain it. And so like you had already developed your character, your integrity, etc., to a standpoint where like when more success, if you will, or more financial success came about, you were ready for it and you weren't going to throw it all away and it wasn't going to fall as quickly as it rose, if you will. I want to start to get into a little bit of technical personal finance and whatnot. I love y'all's concept of building your base, of building basically your first 100K, if you will, invested into the markets. Talk us to us just kind of like briefly overview of like what building your base means. I know I kind of just said it, but what building your base means, why it's important, and how to do it, and kind of what it looks like from an investment portfolio perspective.
Yeah, totally. So at the Rich Habits podcast, we are firm believers that every single person, if you are on the wealth building journey that is retirement, right, you need to build your base. And what that is defined as for us is having at least $100,000 saved and invested in, this could be across all of your different retirement accounts, all your brokerage accounts. It doesn't have to be in one account, right? So your 401k here, maybe your traditional IRA there, maybe your bridge account over here, but having that $100,000 saved and invested invested and invested in the index funds and ETFs that have done well for the last several decades. So I'm talking about the S&P 500, ETF for that is VOO. Talking about the NASDAQ 100, ETF for that is QQQ. Talking about the Dow Jones Industrial Average, really not the Russell 2000, but like there are some incredible, super easy ETFs that you can put your money in over a long period of time and it will continue to grow. The rule of 72. This is a math equation that I'm sure Nick also learned in college, which essentially means that if you take the number 72 and you divide it by your annualized expected return, it tells you how long it's going to take to double your investment. And so you take the number 72, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 tend to go up by about 10% per year. So 72 divided by 10 is 7, rough, which tells us any dollars that we invest today will double in value every 7 years. So that $100,000 doubles into $200,000 7 years from now. And then 7 years again, it'll double to 400,000 and then 800,000, then 1.6 million, right? So on and so forth. And why we think it's so important. You know, you've got two camps. You've got the Dave Ramsey camp, and no shade to Dave Ramsey. I learned about all this because he helped me understand personal finance and investing. But his camp is get out of debt, get out of debt, get out of debt. Our camp is get invested, get invested, get invested. And here's why. Let's say you have a net worth of $100,000, and that net worth is brought down by $82,000 of student loans, maybe $50,000 of car debt, but like it's brought down because you have debt. Now, let's say you have the exact same $100,000 net worth over here as well. When on the camp of paying off the debt, yes, if it is high interest debt like credit cards or maybe some sort of HELOC or something that is like just bad news bears, get rid of it. We don't want any of that stuff. You're paying way too much in interest. Totally agree. But when it comes down to this idea of like pay off debt, pay off debt, pay off debt, debt is simple interest, and the best it's going to do is go to zero. So I love using my wife here as an example. We are married, haven't combined finances yet. Long story about that. Nick knows it, but anyone. Long story short here, she has student loans of about $30,000. And she goes, "Hey, Austin, I just graduated. I got my MBA. I've got $30,000 of student loans. Should I just like take all my extra money and go pay it off?" And I'm like, "Okay, you very well could, pay off this $30,000 of student loan debt, or hear me out. You could invest into your Roth IRA, put some money in your savings account, and then after you have at least $30,000 saved and invested over here, then with net new money, you go pay that off." And now it comes back to the $100,000 and why it's so important is because let's say she took that same 30,000 over the last 3 years or 4 years and paid off the debt. Congratulations, you now don't have debt. But that same 30, 40,000 put over here and invested will double in 7 years. You're not going to come up with an extra 30, 40,000 over here because you paid off the debt. Then that's going to double 7 years from then. So I guess what I'm saying is whenever you have that first base of $100,000 saved and invested, it's always going to be working for you and building throughout your life. And don't get me wrong. I know everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, $100,000, that's a lot of money, dude. I don't know if I can come up with that." On average, it takes 8 years for the average person to go from zero to $100,000 invested. So like, do not feel like you got to do this in 12 months or 18, whatever. It's going to take you a long time. But that first 100,000 is going to be that first 8 years. But then you know how long it's going to take to get the next 100? 6 years. And the next 100? 4 years. And then you'll be hitting $100,000 every year because your portfolio is so big and it's working for you automatically. So just having that mentality of like being able to understand just how important compound interest is and how it can continue to grow throughout your life versus simple interest of paying down debt, it's just the biggest game changer, I think, for people.
Totally. And like, it's so important to understand and internalize and execute upon, the 100,000. And when you're talking about doubling, that's not even putting anything more in. And when you start to put more in on a monthly basis, annual basis, like the rate at which the compound interest increases is exponential. And so it's super exciting. And then the other thing to think about is that this is why it's so important for parents to teach their kids personal finance. Because if you think about it, 8 years to go from 0 to 100K, that's graduate from college, turn 30 years old, you've got 100K in the bank. And like, you're already doing really, 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 really good. And so it's really important. Like if you're listening to this, send this to somebody who has a kid who's maybe in high school or in college. Like open up Roth IRA, open up a savings account, like get some of these investment vehicles rolling, because it's going to make a huge difference and really set them up for success. And I think it's really important. I think a lot of people live life backwards. I think a lot of people in their 20s are thinking, oh man, I'm only going to be young for so long. I need to live my life. And like, there's obviously some of that, and we might get into that in a second, but it's like, yeah, but you really got to dig your feet in and get that 100K as soon as possible, because it's going to have unbelievable growth because of simply longevity by getting it done so early on.
And I'd love
Actually, let's
to give another example to that, actually.
yeah.
It's actually funny. This podcast episode was filmed, but it's not yet live yet. We filmed it in advance. So, to your point, and I love this because it goes right back to what you're saying. Every dollar invested in your 20s turns into $70 in retirement.
Mm.
Whoa. So that $3 beer really just got a lot more expensive. That extra, going out on that Saturday night, like, don't get me wrong, have some fun, do your thing. But think about that. Next time you're over here telling yourself, oh, yeah, an extra $100 a month, my friends, whatever. That is an extra $7,000 that you could have in retirement. So every dollar in your 20s is $70 in retirement. Every dollar in your 30s is only $26 in retirement. And every dollar you invest in your 40s is only $10 in retirement. So that really illustrates the power of compound interest and getting invested early and staying invested for the longevity of that, 30, 40, 50 years.
Totally. And like you said, like that doesn't mean you don't go spend any money, but I think the reason why understanding that is so powerful, to internalize that is so powerful, is because it gets you to understand just the power of opportunity cost. You know that, okay, I'm spending money here. Is it worth it? Yes or no? And until you have the conversation, and so spending money isn't as mindless, and you can be more mindful and conscientious about what you're spending money on and intentional about what you're spending money on. And just to further get into some of the things as far as personal finance, and I might lay it out real quickly. And as far as building your base, right? Like everybody will have a checking account where they get paid and they have a little bit of money and maybe 1.5, 2 months of your total expenses. Then you want to make sure you have an emergency fund built up. Everybody says a little bit different, maybe 3 to 6 months worth of your monthly expenses built up. Then, especially if you're starting this young, having a Roth IRA where you're maxing out your annual contributions of $7,000 a year or $583 per month. And then the bridge account, which is an account that will grow, it is pre-tax, Roth IRA post-tax. So then you have a brokerage account that's pre-tax, that when you take it out, it will get taxed, but this is kind of like thing where you can let it grow, and you can take it out for whatever other investments you might need. But maybe like if there's anything you have to add to this, the like set number of accounts that you need to like really have your base built, feel free and go for it.
Yeah. So here's sort of how we think about it. Match beats Roth beats taxable. So let's say you're working a 9-to-5 job, making $100,000 a year in downtown Nashville, and you have the opportunity to contribute, to your 401k, and it is a match of 5%. So you contribute 5% of your annualized pre-tax salary, so that's $5,000 a year, to your 401k. They match it dollar for dollar at up to that same 5%. So now you have $10,000 a year getting contributed into this pre-tax account, and you're having a ball. So now you are investing 10% of your pre-tax salary into this retirement account. 2 thumbs up from me. So the reason why you want to focus on that first before you start thinking about the Roth IRA. It's because a match is free money, man. Get yourself that free money. Now, 401ks are a little tricky because 401ks are not investment strategies. They are the account your money gets invested through. Once you put the money in the 401k, depending on the type of employer you have, who they have relationships with, who's doing the 401k, you might have a very limited options of investments that are high fees, low performing, right? Like target date funds and stuff like that. Like that's one thing. But hopefully you have autonomy over your 401k and you can put it into things like the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq and the other ETFs we talk about on the Rich Habits podcast and like we did before this show. And so that's why you want to focus on that match beats Roth, right? So you got the match going. What's the Roth? The Roth individual retirement account is an after tax retirement account where every dollar that gets contributed into this account, not only does it grow tax free, but you get to pull out all the profits once you're 59 and a half years old, and you don't have to pay a dime in taxes on it. So if you're, let's say, 25 or 30 years old and you're maxing out this, you're putting in $583 a month and you're doing all the fun stuff and the right stuff in this account and it grows at that 10% per year, you'll have a couple $1 million in this account. You'll have contributed maybe, I don't know, $400,000 throughout your life, but now it's worth $2 million. So that $1.5 million of profit, if you want to take it out of that account and put it in your checking account and go use it to buy your dream home or go use it to go on that crazy vacation, whatever it might be, you can do that. No taxes paid. It's your money. So that's really powerful. Now, you're alluding to the bridge account. The bridge account is that taxable, is that last word, right? So match beats Roth beats taxable. So this is a normal taxable brokerage account you can open up on public.com, Robinhood, Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, wherever you want to open up this normal taxable brokerage account. And this account has one point and one point only. So you can retire early. A weird situation that Dave Ramsey listeners find themselves in is they followed the baby steps. They're doing their 20s and 30s, their 40s. And now they're in their 50s, right? So they've been maxing out the 401k. They paid off their home. They've been doing everything that is being told to them. And now they're net worth millionaires, right? They've got a paid for home that's probably worth 700 grand. Between the two people that are married, they probably have between $1.5 to $3 million in this 401k because they've been religious about and maxing it out every year. Now they're in their late 40s, early 50s. They are literal millionaires, but they can't retire. And the reason is all of that equity is locked up in their home. So the only way they'll get it is if they sell their home or borrow against it, which they'll never do because they listen to Dave Ramsey. So they won't borrow the money. And then that $3 million that's in their 401k, they can't take it out until they're 59 and a half, or they're paying that penalty. They're paying the taxes. It's like essentially borrowing at 40% interest. So they're not going to do that either. And so now they're stuck in their, for the next 5, 7, 10 years in their 50s and 40s or whatever it might be, they're having to work until they can finally tap into that money without the penalties and fees. And so what we talk about with the bridge account is this is a normal taxable brokerage account that anyone can go open up. Yes, you do have to pay taxes on the profits, but I mean, that's kind of how it is anyway. But regardless, you're not going to get penalized for taking money out earlier. So, for example, the stock market's up 10% this year. It was up like 20% the year before, or 30% before that. So, like, if you're investing consistently into an account like this, you're going to have a ton of profit. And maybe there's a world where you're 52 and you've got $700,000 in this account and you want to retire for the next 7 years before you can, tap into your 401k. Okay, so I've got 7 years to go. I have 700,000 in this account. Let me take out 100,000 a year out of this account for the next 7 years to sustain my life until I can tap into my retirement. That's the bridge account. It bridges you from that, area of your life before and after retirement.
Totally. And frame it up one more time into kind of a bridge a question off of it. Pun, I guess, not really intended. You have the checking account, savings account, maybe Roth IRA, maybe work 401k. Bridge account is kind of like that non-retirement account. Is that where you kind of keep money to put different places that you might want to? So it's like maybe down the road, I know I want to buy another house or buy another investment property. So I'm going to take money out of there. Or I know I want to invest in a business. And so I'm going to take money out of there. Is that where you kind of keep it in a bridge account for those types of uses?
That is correct, because the money that you put in your retirement accounts, you cannot touch until retirement, which is 59 and a half years old. Yes, theoretically, you could take money out of your Roth IRA and not be penalized for it, but it's like, don't touch your retirement money.
Yeah.
Like, let it grow. Like,
I
that's
don't have that mindset.
Yes. So
Yeah.
don't do that. So yes, the bridge account is that account that you can say, yeah, I want to buy a home in 5 years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, 1,300 bucks a month into this account. I'm going to invest it in the S&P, and then it's going to grow. And then 5 years from now, the down payment's going to be $40,000 because it grew by 19% during that period of time. And I'm going to use that to get like 100%. That's exactly how you should be thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it's funny anytime you guys bring up the like, yeah, you can bring up, or yeah, you can take out the money of the Roth. It's like, I feel like every single time you guys talk about that, I can like tell that they can say it. They don't really want to say it because like, I don't, we
Well,
don't
there's
want
so many
people
people
thinking
on
that
the
they
internet.
can.
Like there's
Yeah.
literally so we have like comments on Spotify, right? And like there are people that will like go to the nth degree of doing the research to try and like correct us on. And don't get me wrong, if we are wrong about something, we will call it out. We have no shame in our game. But theoretically, yes, like there are little things you can do with some crazy
Yeah.
loopholes and taxes to tap into these accounts before 59 and a half. They have full of fees. They're very rigid. They don't make a lot of sense. Like just go get a bridge account. You'll be
Yeah,
fine.
exactly, exactly. There's an easy workaround that you don't makes it so you shouldn't even worry about that. Okay, so let's say you're somebody who's built their base. They've got the emergency fund built up 3 to 6 months. They are currently maxing out the Roth IRA. And I'm going to put some numbers on it just to make it a little bit more practical. Let's say somebody was uh, putting away $1,000 a month saving and investing, and they're putting $583 a month towards their Roth. Let's say they're adding an additional 100 to their savings account just to slowly pad that, and then they've got an extra $300 that they were taking and putting into their bridge account. Let's say now that person has, instead of $1,000, they've got $5,000 because their income has gone up, they're making more money, whatever it might be. Still 583, maybe still 100 to the savings account, but now they've got, close to a little over $3,000. How do you think about percentage wise the allocation of the extra funds that somebody has now available to them?
Great question. So, something that we teach is the core satellite portfolio strategy, which essentially means 65 to 85% of your investment portfolio should be invested into index funds and ETFs that just go up and to the right over a long period of time. Obviously, 85% if you're more risk off, 65% if you're more risk on. Now, the other, let's call it 15 to 35%, that can go be diversified any which way that suits your fancy. For me, that is real estate, that's cryptocurrency, that's income producing ETFs like NEOS funds, that's single stocks, that is artwork on Masterworks. Like that is diversified any which way I want it to be diversified. And that makes sense because now you've got, let's call it rough 75% or three quarters of your portfolio in these ETFs. They're going to go up and to the right like they have done for decades. And the other quarter now you get to have some fun with. You get to maybe go buy some of those single stocks like Nvidia or Microsoft that we're really excited about. Or maybe you are over here wanting to invest in your first rental property. And so you're going to squirrel away some money for that. That's where that's going to come from, right? That part of your portfolio is where you're going to do that. Or maybe you're a venture capital enthusiast and you want to invest, mid single digits of your portfolio into angel investments and one-off different things like that. Like that's where that money is going to come from. Okay.
Totally.
So we're not pulling it from our tried and true ETFs that tend to go up and to the right over a long period of time. We're doing it from our quarter of the portfolio that we have diversified across single stocks and real estate and all that, crypto, stuff like that.
So are you still sticking? Are you personally sticking to like that 65 to 85%? Like where do you lie on that?
So when it comes to net new capital, yes, I am. When it comes to where my net worth is right now, I've been lucky to make some very good angel venture investments, some cryptocurrency back in 2016 that I never sold. Like I was able to make some cool moves back in the day that have since ballooned other sections of my portfolio to make up much more than that, 25%. So from a where my portfolio sits today, it's closer to about 50-50. But
Yeah.
with net new capital, like all of the new money I get is getting deployed into the markets in a very systematic way. I'm not, net new capital is not being used on real estate and stuff like that. So like,
Yeah.
yes, net new capital, I do follow that strategy.
Totally. And just to clarify for everybody what he's talking about. So he's saying net new capital, net new money that he's making when he is going to invest, if he has an extra $5,000 in cash that's coming in, it's that he's still doing the 65 to 85% and then the 15 to 35. If you're looking at the totality of his net worth portfolio and the percentage of how much each investment makes up of his portfolio, that's where it's not 65 to 85 and 15 to 35. So that's awesome. I kind of want to transition into, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but debt, paying off loans, just student loans. Everybody, the high interest debt is not a fixed number. I would say that most people would probably say 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. would be potentially, and then obviously above that with credit cards would be high interest debt. But give everybody a sense of, you mentioned how you're not the Dave Ramsey camp of don't have any debt. You're in the camp of get money invested, but at the same time, you're in the camp of pay off high interest debt as quickly as you can. So give us just kind of like the framework of how you think about paying off debt and kind of what the rates are, etc.
Totally. So yes, how everyone should think about debt at any form of debt is you always think about the opportunity cost. Okay, so hear me out. The stock market, as we know, does about 10% per year. Okay, so every dollar invested in the stock market will increase by about 10% that year and then compound on itself going forward. So if I had $20,000 of credit card debt that was at 33% interest, we can do some quick math on that. I'm paying now $6,600 a year in interest by carrying that credit card debt. Now, if I had $20,000 of cash to pay off that credit card debt, but I decided, no, I'm going to go invest it. Think about the numbers there. You're earning 10% to invest it, but you're paying 33% by not paying it off. So you're losing, right, 20% plus of interest. So, the math isn't mathing. We always talk about having arbitrage with your money, and that's where good debt, quote unquote, can come into play. So when it comes to credit card debt, if there's a debt that you have that is high single digits, low double digits or above, like call it, so that same 8, 9, 10, 11%, like seriously consider paying it off. Like that's where we are, because at the end of the day, the markets average 10%. So by investing that money, something we say is you can't out-invest high-interest debt. So by investing that money, you're not making any money because you're paying whatever you made over here in interest. Now, when it comes to paying off a large sum of money, like we said before you pay off those $50,000 of student loans or that, $82,000 of student loans, make sure you have the same amount or more working and investing for you and growing for you over a long period of time. If you're someone that's got 4%, 5%, 6% interest on your student loans and keep them around for a little bit. That's cool. Assuming while you keep them around, you are also maxing out the Roth, doing these things, and you're building, your base and you're investing. Now, here's the other thing that we like to say. As you are paying off your debt, so let's say this $50,000 student loan debt, while you are getting aggressive to pay it off, you did not stop investing. We do not want to ever stop investing because that's how we build wealth over a long period of time. I know Dave is like, you want to pause your investing to go get rid of all this stuff no matter what the interest rate is. Sure, I guess, but like, if someone's going to take 4 years to pay their debt off, that's 4 years. I mean, the markets were up 20%, 30% before that, 54% in 2020, I think 3. So it's like, that's a lot of money that you're leaving on the table by staying uninvested for a prolonged period of time. So we think, pay off your debt. That's cool. Everyone should retire with a paid off house, no debt. Like, you should not have debt in retirement, right? I'm not against debt in that way of like, yeah, keep it around. Like, I don't love debt. But I do recognize that there's a specific protocol as it relates to paying off the debt to do as least amount of damage for your future retirement nest egg as possible.
Totally. And just to gloss over it, because I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention like the kinds of debt that are buying assets that appreciate in value versus the kind of debt that depreciates in value. Most common example being you buy a house, most likely it's going to appreciate in value. You buy a car, most likely, or not most likely, it will depreciate in value. And so buying an asset that appreciates in value is obviously the thing that is kind of more considered good debt and not bad debt. And just to clarify as well with people, when you're looking at your interest rate and determining the trade-off, like you mentioned, if the market is returning 10% and your interest rate is 3%, then you guys talk about the arbitrage, right? It's like 7% difference. So it's like, you're good. And so that's why that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is where we start to think high interest debt, because on average, maybe the market returns about 8 to 10%.
Yeah, a great example of that, to your point, is a mortgage, right? There's a lot of people right now that got lucky and they've got those 2.5 to 3% mortgage rates. And they're like, do I pay off my mortgage? Do I just like chunk all the money at it like Dave tells me to do, get it paid off early? And I'm over here like, okay, let's run the numbers. Let's say you owed $300,000 on your house. So $300,000 at a 2.5% interest rate is $7,500 a year that you're paying in interest. Now, let's say that same $300,000 was invested in the markets, growing at 10%. That's $30,000 a year. And then the year after that, it'd be $33,000 a year, right? So it's like, that's a lot of money of a difference. That's 25,000.
$22,500. Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me is money I'd much rather have in my pocket working for me, building over a long period of time versus saying, yep, I'm saving $7,000 a year on this interest. It's like, cool, but you could have made 30 over there, right?
Totally. No, there is no doubt that y'all's take on debt and everything mathematically, it doesn't compare. The math doesn't math when you're thinking about paying off a 2% interest rate when you could be getting 8 to 10%. You just got to make sure that you're actually investing the extra capital that you have on hand, rather than saying like, oh, I could be paying off this debt, but I'm not going to, and I'm going to spend the money. So you got to make sure you're obviously being good about that. So next thing I want to dive into is, I know that you kind of have this rule of, I forget the exact number, but I'm going to make up a number. So I need to, for every 10K I put into investments, then I allow myself to buy something if I want to, if you will. Talk to us a little bit about that rule, why you have it in place, and like kind of how that's important for you psychologically and mentally.
Yeah, I think kind of back to this idea of, when you're in your 20s and 30s and I want to live life and enjoy it, like, hell yeah, live life, enjoy it. Like, you are putting yourself in a situation financially to have an awesome life. And we want everyone to enjoy all of their hard-earned money as it makes responsible sense to them. And the rule that you're alluding to is, for me, because I'm such a super nerd and I get so wound up about trying to invest as much as I possibly can, I've told myself every $100,000 that I invest into the stock market, real estate, whatever, right? Every $100,000 that gets invested, I have to spend $10,000 on something that makes me really happy. If that is a wonderful engagement trip with my now wife, if that was a jet ski, which it was last year, like whatever that, $10,000 is, like that is something I have to do and enjoy. Earlier this year too, it was like we bought a new couch, right? So it's like what is that thing that is just the guilty pleasure of the I don't feel bad money? Because you shouldn't. You invested $100,000, and now for me it's 100 to 10,000. For you it might be 10,000 to 1,000, or maybe 1,000 to $100, like whatever it might be. But like, just make sure that you are not psychologically torturing yourself to get as much money as possibly invested, and you're not living in the now, in the moment, and having fun with your friends, and really enjoying your life too. Because like, oh, I'm sure, Nick, you're 30, I'm 29. I'm just over here looking back and thinking everything over the last 5, 6, 7 years. I'm like, man, like those were the golden years, like being in your 20s, right? Enjoying it and having some fun. It's like I could have done more, or done things differently. And, I see my friends who are now in their early 30s and they're like, wow, man, you have so much money invested. That's so cool. I'm like, yeah, but you guys went to Europe last year. Like, I wish I did that. Or, you guys, whatever, right? So just do what works for you. Something we like to say a lot on the show is personal finance is personal, right? You will have your own personal relationship with money. If it's good, if it's traumatic, if it's bad, if it's whatever it is, right? Everyone's relationship with money is different. And so with that mindset, do what makes the most sense for you and your day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year life.
Totally. Everybody's relationship with money is different, but I do love the goal. It's just like, it gives you a carrot at the end of the stick. It gives you something to work for. It gives you meaningfulness behind your trade-off. It gives you meaningfulness behind, maybe the sacrifice of not buying something in the moment. And then, like you said, you don't feel guilty when you spend the $10,000. It's one of the things I tell my fitness and nutrition clients is like, if you're going out of town, decide in advance how healthy or not healthy you actually intend to be, because I think that so much regret sometimes comes from not necessarily not being healthy when you were gone, but just the fact that you were very unintentional about how you were. You were just mindless about it. If you go on the trip and you think, I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat, I'm going to drink however much I want to drink, and you are intentional about that, when you come back, you're not going to feel as guilty. And it's almost like a similar psychological thing, is like, be intentional about how you're going to spend your money. And then the sacrifice that you are making is going to be so much more meaningful, and you're not going to have as much trouble making the sacrifice.
100%.
What are you most excited? What for you personally are you most excited about as far as like trying to really take it to the next level of your wealth building? Like, I know you have a lot of different things that you like to invest in. You mentioned some businesses. You do, art and fine wine or whiskey. What are you most excited right now to try to accelerate your wealth building journey?
It's a really good question. I guess a couple things I'm really excited about. To answer your question directly, I think there's going to be more millionaires made from artificial intelligence than the .com, any of that, right? Like, it's never been easier for someone to go create some sort of business, some sort of something in a 3-hour period of time using agents and everything else that's out there. I'm excited for everyone else that's going to go do that. Not my thing. I don't care to go code in AI, whatever. I've got the podcast and my own business. Like, I'm happy with that. But I'm excited for other people that we now have this incredible technology to take advantage of. So, like, if I was listening to the show, I would be super pumped and be trying to figure out AI automations for boring small businesses. There's 1,000 businesses in Nashville alone, I'm sure, and they're probably 50% are owned by people over the age of 50 that can't even spell AI. That was a joke. And have no idea how to do any of this automation stuff or use like chat bots, and they don't get it at all. So, like, go figure out how to go provide value to them. As it relates to what I'm really excited about to build wealth and things of that nature is like, well, I guess there were 3 points to this. I'll tell you another thing I'm excited about that before. But so something we created with the Rich Habits podcast is the Rich Habits Network, which is essentially a way for Robert and I to connect with our biggest fans. It's a school community on school.com, skool.com. And the cool thing about it, beyond like the video modules and the ability to like join us on like weekly live streams and stuff, Robert and I get awesome opportunities pretty much on a monthly basis because of the online personalities that we are and the boards we sit on and advisory work we do, to invest in pre-IPO companies all the time. So there have been now 7 different pre-IPO startup, opportunities that we've shared with our members inside the Rich Habits Network to invest alongside with us, right? So 2 of them were, one is Figure, which is a humanoid robotics company. We got into their most recent round. Another was Apptronic, which was another humanoid robotics company. One is called Capacity. They're a really cool AI agent company that works with like Apple and Delta and things like that. They're going to IPO in probably 18 months. Another one's called Lambda. They're very similar to CoreWeave. They're going to IPO in 12 to 18 months. And so, like, being able to, one, invest for myself in these awesome pre-IPO companies, but 2, unlock this asset class to hundreds, if not thousands of people that would have never been able to, have this sort of deal flow in their own portfolios and their own, just come across their desk. And now they get to invest, let's call it mid-single digits of their own net worth into these pre-IPO opportunities and real estate syndications and whatever the heck else we're going to be offering and doing there in the Rich Habits Network is like really rewarding to me. Like, I just get so jazzed. Like, having money is cool. Helping other people make a lot of money is just as fun. And like, once you realize the world is not a zero-sum game and we can all invest in the same stuff and have a good time together, like, it just makes me so freaking excited. So like, those are 2 things that make me happy. But like, what do I think is actually going to like do really well is humanoid robotics. I'm super bullish on Figure, Apptronic, Tesla. I think by the end of this decade, my net worth will balloon because of my overexposure to that class of technology.
Totally. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's going to be insane what happens over the next 5 to 10 years. What happens over the next 5 to 10 years in that sector. It'll be fascinating to watch, maybe a little scary to watch, and you're gonna have people are we're gonna have to adjust. But hey, that's the world we're living in. So instead of run away from it, embrace it and find a way to make it work for you, if you will. I've got a few more. I got a few more questions to ask. I don't know. I'm sure you know people. I know people. I'm 30 years old. There's people around me, around my age, who have student loans or maybe just have a certain debt that they just really don't take seriously. They think, oh, the student loans will go away at some point, and that could be a whole other conversation. Maybe there's some student loan relief that continues to happen at some point down the road. But I want you to kind of like talk to the person who might be sitting in the seat thinking, I know I have debt, I know I have student loans or other debt, but like, it's not a big deal. Like, I'm not getting punished for it now. Like, what would you say to that person to start taking it a little bit more seriously?
Yeah. So a quote we say on the show a lot is broke people react, wealthy people forecast. And by that, we mean broke people let life happen to them. Oh, I've got the student loan. Oh, this, oh, my job. Like life is happening to them. They're not happening to life. Wealthy people say, where am I today? Where do I want to be in 3, 5, 10 years from now? And what can I do on a daily basis to ensure I'm trending in that direction? So the people that are listening right now that have that debt and they don't really like, that's average. That's the average American. Like, that's cool. And you can 100% be an average American, live a super fruitful, happy life with your family, your friends. Like, money is not everything, and I'm not saying it is. But if you are someone who feels trapped, who feels hopeless, who feels like, there's no road for me, like, oh, I don't want, America is where I'll never retire. Like, I really want to encourage you to lose that victim mentality, have a victor mentality, and begin to forecast and dream about your life. Maybe wake up early before the kids are up, or before, walk your dog or whatever. Think about, but have some time alone and think about, what do you want your life to look like in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 1 year from now? I think it's Bill Gates that said the quote, as humans, we overestimate what we can accomplish in a short period of time and dramatically underestimate what we can accomplish in a long period of time. And that is a wonderful quote. I'm not going to hit you with another quote here. Sahil Bloom, um, it's better to be consistently, I think he said, it's better to be consistently average than unconsistently extraordinary, right? Anything above zero compounds. That 1% better every day. I'm sure you talked about that with your clients all the time. Like, anything above zero compounds, but you have to get to that 1%.
Yeah,
And so if you are that person who feels like you're drifting through life and life is happening to you, like, that's okay. I've got a lot of friends that feel like that. And that's totally fine. Like, if that's like, if you are happy with your life, like, cool, be happy. If you're unhappy with your financial situation, let's figure out changes that we can make on a daily basis to help us build some rich habits to trend better over a long period of time.
totally, totally. And I love that quote from Sahil Bloom. I mean, consistency is exceptional. That's what like people need to get in there and get in their mind. Like, consistency, not aim for perfection, but aim for consistency, because consistency is almost perfection in and of itself.
I found the
Um,
quote. I wrote it down. Here we go. It's, you'll achieve much more by being consistently reliable than by being occasionally extraordinary.
that's good. That's really good. That's really good. You you just got married. What conversations most to back up? I feel like probably most divorces have something to do with money. So money conversations are super important. What are some things that you and your wife, when she was your girlfriend and early on now that you're married, what are some routine conversations that you guys have together that you feel like are really important? And what were some conversations you had in the beginning to ensure that you were setting yourself up for success with how you guys were handling money and viewing money moving forward?
100%. So for context, we got married, quote unquote, like 2 weeks ago, married on July 7, wanted to make sure that we were married when my dad was still alive. He died on July 8. So we don't have a marriage license. We've not combined finances. It's been a weird couple of weeks here, but let's talk about like the perfect situation, right? And like figure out what that begins to shape up as. So My wife now, Ireland is her name. She and I started talking about finances pretty early on. I think it begins with like, oh, like what that's a cool credit card. Like what is it? How do you use it? Oh yeah, it's awesome. I have the points and I'm doing the stuff and it's helps me build my credit. Oh cool. Like what's your credit score? I didn't know that. Like do you have other credit cards? Like I think a lot of people make the mistake of treating money as some sort of taboo subject.
Yeah.
And marriages that last, you have expectations laid out in front of you from a monetary perspective with money as soon as possible. And those expectations for us very much were like, yeah, let's walk through. Like, I'd love to see your budget. How can I help you? Yeah, you want to see mine? Like, this is what I spend my money on, and here's where you fit into it, and here's where we fit into it, and here's what we're looking at here. Wow, you're investing so much, like you're saving. That's amazing. And or it's like, hey, like, yeah, I don't feel really good about this. Like, what do you think? How should I treat this debt, like the student loans, right? So, like, here's the deal. How do you have those conversations? Um, it's a tricky conversation in the beginning, and it's not something to have in the first probably 9 or 12 months of a relationship. But once you start to see someone as a wow, I can see myself marrying this person, then like, yeah, like, hey, um, I think money is a very important conversation to have because we know it's the leading cause of divorce. I would love to sit down with you and share how I think about money and love to learn your perspective on money. And that's it. Here's where the mistakes are happen. Where the mistakes happen. Sometimes those money conversations come from a place of like, oh, I've got this credit card debt. I don't care about it, whatever else. And like, again, everyone's relationship with money is different. Maybe the person you're having this conversation with was never taught money. Maybe their parents never were taught money, right? Maybe it was like this generational thing that never worked out for them. And so they don't know how to money, right? That's okay. You can't get mad at anyone for that. That's their situation. But what you can do is offer some resources, some tools, some podcasts, some YouTube channels, some ebooks, some whatever else you want to do to help them trend in the right direction. Now, where the problem lies is if they don't want to trend in that direction and they want to stay in that sort of level of mediocrity with money and irresponsibility. Well, now we're having a disagreement here with like things that mean to us, like character differences, right? Like it's like that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But if someone doesn't know something about money, like no, none of us know anything about anything until we're taught about it, and that's okay, right? We're all learning together. So now let's fast forward. Someone's married. Best way to win with money is you combine your finances. You guys have a joint checking account. Her salary goes into it, your salary goes into it. Now you say, "Cool, we've got $10,000 this month. How do we divvy it up?" Well, 2,500 goes to the mortgage, 700 goes to our car payment, and this is the utilities. And yeah, like we should definitely, save and invest 15% of that. So 1,500 goes that. Yeah, I'd love to like save for a vacation. Okay, cool. Let's start a sinking fund where every month we put $500 into it. Then after 12 months, we have $6,000 to go on that dream vacation we want to do in Europe. Like having those conversations is where the healthy marriages really begin to stem from. But what people forget about is when it comes to a budget, we have something called the honest budget, right? I think everyone has a budget in their head, but like, what's your honest budget? Does it include the makeup, the dog treats? Does it include the coffee that you sporadically went and got with your friends? Like, be honest with the amount of money you're spending, saving, investing, wherever else, and make sure that you both are on the same page with that spending before the month begins. Now the month is, let's say August is right around the corner here. Okay, August 1st, we know we're going to make this much money. We're going to set this much aside. We're going to go eat out this much. We've got this much to pay here. We're going to go buy, like, cool. And then when it happens, high fives all around. We already agreed to this. Like that, now there's no riff. Now there's no disagreement. Now there's, that doesn't, turn into a larger argument that could lead to a divorce or something like that, right? So it's like money conversations in marriage are hard, but they're the most important to have, and I think that everyone can approach them in a way that's really responsible. Now here's where things get tricky. If there's abuse, if there's addiction, if there any of that stuff, see you later, bye. I don't want you on any of my accounts. Like I can't trust you. Like let's go to counseling, let's figure some stuff out. Like I'm not saying in those situations to combine finances, but in a happy healthy marriage, absolutely.
Totally. There's so much in there that was so valuable. I think that one of the more important things is like when you're first getting into a relationship, or even if you are in a relationship but you haven't talked about finances yet, like it's we shouldn't be treating it as this taboo subject. It should be something that is more discussed. That's why I appreciate you being like so open on the podcast, so open here about like how much money you're making, how much money you're investing, all that kind of stuff, because that needs to be talked about more, because most people in their late 20s, early 30s, or whatever age they are, don't really have any idea of what they should be doing or what's good or what's not good and stuff like that. And it's important to not make it a taboo subject, because then it doesn't have to be such a big deal when you have the conversation. And then I think what you said was really important of, you're not ever talking about it from the standpoint of like you're talking down to them or you're being critical of them for not understanding things. Like, just be curious about like, how do you view this? And that's a really good entry point. And then, yeah, when you can get strategic with each other, it's fun, because then you're more of a team and you guys can set goals together, and then it becomes more fun to save and invest and spend strategically. So all of that was really good. You got time for one more question? I know we're a little bit longer.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, before I ask that last question, you guys need to make sure that, first off, you go listen to the Rich Habits podcast. I've been listening to this thing for 2 to 3 years. I already had some sense of personal finance, but I feel like my education has compounded over the last couple of years, if you will. And so if you know nothing about personal finance, or you already feel like you know a lot, that's what makes the podcast so good, is it's suitable for all levels of current education. They also have Q&A episodes where you can submit your questions. You can DM them. You can email them the questions that you have about your situation, and they'll answer and give you really good advice. And I'm almost going to play a Q&A here to finish in a second, but you can go follow them. The Rich Habits Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can follow them on Instagram at Rich Habits Podcast. You can follow Austin on Instagram at Austin Hankwitz. And you can also go to richhabitspodcast.com. Last question is a Q&A. I told you in DMs before, one of my clients, I turned on to y'all's podcast, and now she's part of the Rich Habits Network. And this is her question, and take your time if you need to take your time. But she said, Nick told us about your podcast, which has been so helpful. We have funded our Roth IRAs and just established our base in a brokerage account on Public. We're an older couple, 64 and 69, and a little late to the dance, although we've been able to accomplish this in the last 6 months. We're investing 20% of our income, and I wondered, how would you suggest the allocation of our investments as an older couple? Would it be different advice because of our age? Thank you so much for all the education and help you're bringing. The last thing I wanted to mention, they're 64 and 69. Both of them work out with me for the last couple of years. They're in very good shape, very healthy. Both are actively working and engaged. And so that context is important. And because like the last thing I want to say is like, I know this question is kind of a matter of how many more investing years you have in front of you. And so to piggyback that question, what I agreed with her upon was like saying, how does the advice differ if they have 10 years to live versus like 35 more years to live? And if I need to repeat any part of the question, feel free to let me ask me to repeat it.
Yeah, no problem. So it sounds to me like the question comes down to, hey, we are investing 20% and we're maxing out the things we're supposed to do.
Yep.
We want to know how aggressive we should be with this money. Should we be going 100% equities and ride this wave? Should we be this like 60-40 portfolio that people have in retirement? Maybe we should go more heavy on bonds. How should we be thinking about this? So my dad died 2 weeks ago. He was 79. I think the average male lives to like 79, early 80s, something like that. This guy's call it 10, 15 years from that, statistically speaking.
Right.
God willing, he'll live into his 80s and 90s, as will she. And so, in my humble opinion, I would say, so you're at 67 between the two of them, right? So,
Yep.
my humble opinion, I'm thinking, okay, theoretically, they've got 15 more years of like pretty good wealth building ahead of them. Yes, the 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds makes sense if you are in retirement because you are in wealth preservation phase, but it does not make sense if you are building wealth in the wealth accumulation phase. It sounds to me like they might still be in the wealth accumulation phase as they're still working and they're still, adding and investing and things like that. Now, I'm not sure I would go 100% equities considering they are older. So maybe there's a world where 20% of their portfolio is invested into some sort of high yield savings, treasuries, things like that, that pays 4, 5, 5.5% on an annualized basis. And the other 80% now is invested totally normal. We're not getting fancy. We're not thinking, single stocks and covered call, any of that stuff. Like let's get normal. Let's think indices like the S&P and the NASDAQ. Maybe if they want to sprinkle on a specific sector of the market like information technology, they can do VGT. Maybe if they want a little bit of growth in there, I'm talking like 5, 10%, they can do VUG. But I think having the vast majority of that 80% sort of section of their portfolio in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ is going to work for them just fine over the next, let's call it 7, 10, 15 years. Let's think about it like this. Again, the stock market doubles every 7 years. Theoretically, they have $500,000 in there right now, and they're adding more to it. So not only is that 500,000 going to turn into 1 million, but the money they added to it during that period of time probably come close to 1,300,000. So that's a wonderful nest egg, right? I mean, there's a lot to look forward to there. And then now you're at 2 million plus, assuming maybe they keep rocking and rolling through 80 and beyond. So assuming they've got 80%, I would say, in equities, I think is where they should be. Now, when they want to flip the switch to retirement, they want to flip the switch to wealth preservation, then it becomes, okay, let's now beef up the bonds and the treasury bills and the high yield savings to have that preservation and interest that just accrues over time. Let's pull down on the stocks a little bit, but we'll keep the stocks the same as they are, right? You want to be rocking and rolling with the market. And then they can do something called the 4% rule. Essentially, what that means is you're taking 4% off the total portfolio value every single year to live off of. And assuming you keep around that 4 to 5% and you have a 60-40 split, you will mathematically and historically not run out of money for 30 years. So that's how people tend to retire. That's how they do the wealth preservation and make sure they don't spend too much in retirement, too little, whatever. But yeah, that's my take.
I love it. I love it. That was great. Like you said, maybe 10, 14, 15 years of 80-20 accumulating, and then obviously future dependent, then maybe switch to 60-40 and do that 4% rule during that preservation phase. That was awesome. That was awesome. You guys, that's the kind of advice that you can get if you submit a question on the Rich Habits podcast. So make sure you go subscribe to the Rich Habits podcast wherever you listen or watch podcasts. I watch them every single week, multiple times a week on Spotify. With that said, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, subscribe to this podcast. Hit that follow button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe down below as well. But Austin, this was a bunch of fun, man. I really appreciate you hopping on. It was great being able to talk to you somewhat face to screen, but instead of just watching you do your thing on your podcast, man. It's been a bunch of fun. I appreciate all of the good stuff that you put out in the world. I appreciate the knowledge. I appreciate the care that you put into it, and I appreciate your heart that you put behind it as well. Like you said, you love watching other people make money just as much, if not more so, than yourself, and that energy and that heart and that compassion really comes across in y'all's podcast, and I think that's one of the many reasons why it has exponentially grown in just a few years that y'all have been around. So I appreciate all you do. Keep rocking and rolling, man. Appreciate your time.
Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Best You podcast. And I can't wait to come back. And the only thing I'd add to that is God is good, and keep him at the forefront of your life, and good things happen.